On February 5, 2025, the war in Ukraine sees new developments marked by intense fighting in Donetsk, Ukrainian drone strikes on Russian territory, a prisoner exchange, and stalled peace negotiations. On the military front, the Donetsk region remains a major battleground between Ukrainian and Russian forces. Ukrainian troops are engaged in fierce battles around Kurakhov, an area recently captured by Russian forces. Russia's strategic goal is to secure essential transport routes for its logistics in the Donbass. The Russian forces employ aggressive tactics, combining guided airstrikes and infiltration maneuvers to disrupt Ukrainian defensive lines. However, Ukrainian soldiers are holding their ground, partly thanks to recent deliveries of Western drones and anti-tank equipment. According to military analysts, Ukraine is requesting more drones tailored to its specific needs to counter increasing Russian incursions and prevent counteroffensives from stalling. The gradual depletion of resources on both sides is evident, but reports suggest that Russia might consider reinforcing its presence in certain parts of the Donbass to offset its losses. One of Ukraine's strategies to keep pressure on Moscow involves increasing drone strikes on strategic Russian infrastructure. A fuel depot in the Krasnodar region caught fire last night after being hit by Ukrainian drones. The fire was quickly contained, and no casualties were reported. However, this incident highlights Ukraine's growing offensive capabilities, aimed at disrupting Russian supply chains and causing economic damage. Military analysts believe that such operations could force Russia to redeploy some of its military resources to protect its strategic infrastructure, thereby weakening its offensive capabilities on Ukrainian fronts. Meanwhile, Russian troop movements in the Kursk region near the Ukrainian border are raising questions. Over the past 3 weeks, Russian forces and their North Korean allies have reportedly withdrawn some units from this strategic area. Although the exact reasons for the withdrawal remain unconfirmed, it may be a redeployment to the Donbass, where Russian troops seek to consolidate positions ahead of potential offensives. Ukrainian intelligence services are closely monitoring this situation to anticipate Russia's next moves. Today's prisoner exchange was a rare event in this brutal war. Russia and Ukraine exchanged 150 prisoners on each side, including Ukrainian soldiers captured in Mariupol, a symbol of resistance that fell to Russian control in 2022, and in the Zaporizhzhia Oblast. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed this gesture, but stressed that it should not obscure the gravity of the conflict. The freed soldiers described harsh detention conditions in Russian camps, reflecting the brutal reality of the war. While this exchange is seen as a positive signal, its impact remains limited. Several experts believe it is merely a temporary measure orchestrated to ease international pressure. The human toll of this conflict remains tragic. Zelensky recently announced that approximately 45,100 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed, and 390,000 injured since Russia's invasion began in February 2022. Ukrainian estimates also suggest about 350,000 Russian soldiers have been killed and up to 700,000 wounded. These staggering figures reflect the war's progressive stalemate and the massive human costs borne by both sides. Morale among the troops remains a key concern for both armies. With Western support, Ukraine is trying to sustain its soldiers' motivation by offering rotations and rest periods, but conditions on the ground remain grueling. On the diplomatic front, talks between Ukraine and Russia are stalled due to strict conditions imposed by Moscow. However, Zelensky has expressed openness to direct negotiations with Vladimir Putin if international powers such as the United States and the European Union participate in the discussions. Meanwhile, Russia has reiterated its demands: recognition of the annexation of Crimea and other territories, the lifting of sanctions, and partial demilitarization of Ukraine. These conditions are unacceptable to Kyiv and its allies, making any diplomatic breakthrough unlikely in the short term. Some analysts fear that this diplomatic deadlock could lead to a new military escalation by spring, as both sides prepare for intense offensive campaigns. On the international stage, support for Ukraine remains consistent, but faces growing divergences. The United States recently delivered new Abrams tanks and additional air defense systems. France and the United Kingdom continue to support Ukraine with military resources and troop training. However, Germany has been criticized for its slow delivery of Leopard 2 tanks, causing tensions within the European Union. Additionally, China appears to be shifting from its initial neutrality by considering the provision of non-lethal equipment to Russia, which could alter the conflict's dynamics. In response, Ukraine is strengthening its alliances with other Asian powers, such as Japan and South Korea. In conclusion, the war in Ukraine remains unpredictable and full of twists. The prisoner exchange is a rare gesture indicating that communication channels are not entirely closed, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. Ukrainian drone strikes and Russian troop movements suggest future military escalations. Ukraine's ability to maintain its defensive lines, carry out counteroffensives, and retain international support will be crucial in determining the outcome of this conflict, which continues to reshape global power dynamics. Subscribe to stay updated on daily news from the Russo-Ukrainian conflict.